everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Great Commission Women. I'm so glad that you guys have tuned back in, and I'm super excited to have Deanne Reid on the podcast today. She grew up in our church that we attend, and so it's been really cool as she's visited, get to chat with her, hear her stories, and I'm really excited for her to bring them to you, and I hope you're encouraged. So, Deanne, thanks for being on.
Yes, I'm excited for this.
Let's get to know you a little bit.
Yes. I am proud that I was born in Texas, Dallas, Texas.
Love it.
My parents had moved there shortly after meeting each other in college in Montana. My dad was from Montana. My mom was from the East Coast. So, yeah, I was born in Dallas. And then at a year and a half, my parents moved back to the East Coast to be near family. So I grew up here in Connecticut. When I was in high school, started coming to the church that I'm now sitting in.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of my life, recognizing God at work. And I made my way back to Montana. So that's where I'm living now, married. And I've been in Montana 15 years, but get to come back and see family and friends here.
That's great. How did you meet your husband?
So I went to college in Connecticut at the University of Connecticut and studied. I knew that I wanted to do a service, like tangible helping people kind of role. First, I just thought I want to be a mom, but I wasn't dating anyone when I graduated high school, so then I went to college. And I started studying physical therapy. And then when I learned it would take 5 years and a cadaver lab through a summer and more than 2 semesters of chemistry, I said, nope, not for me. Switched to speech pathology and English, and that was what I did and got a master's degree from UConn. But then, again, I didn't have anything really tying me to a certain place, and I had loved visiting Montana growing up. So I only applied to jobs in Montana.
Yep.
I wanted to work as a school SLP.
Okay.
There were 3 job openings that spring that I graduated. 2 got back to me, and 1 gave me an interview, and I took that job. So I moved to Montana. I had a friend of mine who moved out with me, and I worked there in an elementary school for 5 years, and then got set up on a blind date with Cowboy Bob. And one of my goals in moving to Montana was to marry a cowboy.
Wow.
So the fact that his nickname was Cowboy Bob was good.
Was
right
that
from
like
the start.
a secret goal, or did you tell anyone that?
I didn't tell a lot of people.
Okay.
I did tell one person in my family who said, I don't think you can meet a Christian and a cowboy. That's too hard.
Wow.
Which once I got to Montana, I realized, there are a lot of rough cowboys, but there are also
Not too
Christian
hard for
cowboys.
God.
That's right.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your ministry, how you got connected to Cru, what you're doing in Montana currently.
Yes. My first connection to Cru was when I was in middle school. My Sunday school teacher worked for Cru.
Okay.
And his daughter was my age, so I grew up connected to their family. When I went to college, I joined Cru. I loved that it was fun and real and Christian friends to connect with. I lived at home and commuted, so that was my social community, was being part of Cru. It was biblical. It was enjoyable to do different events and trips. But they also pushed us to talk about our faith with non-Christians.
Yeah.
And that was really the first time I had been pushed to do that. I liked Bible studies. I liked talking with other Christians.
Yes.
But yeah, it was the push to say, well, these people who don't know God, some of them don't know any Christians. So it's not going to happen naturally. We need to be willing to share and start a conversation. So that was kind of my the stretch part of being connected with Cru. Some of my friends organized times to just go out on campus and talk to people and ask them questions about their spiritual life. I remember saying I would go and then feeling so sick. I was in grad school at the time, so I just kind of lived in my little cubicle in the grad building. And I thought maybe I should just cancel because I think I'm going to throw up or pass out. it's really not convenient to
Yes.
go out and share my faith right now. But I thought, maybe I just need to do it. And I showed up and the symptoms were gone immediately.
Oh, wow.
So whether it was stress or whether it was, the enemy trying to stop me,
Yes.
it never felt comfortable, but it felt valuable to share. So I knew that I wanted to be a speech therapist and work with families that had special needs kids. But I started supporting some of my friends from Cru who became full-time missionaries.
Okay.
So that was sort of how I felt I would be connected to missions, would just be through giving and encouraging them. But when I met my husband, he was on staff with Cru.
Okay.
He had joined later in life. He had joined when he was 30. He'd been working in the aviation world. And yeah, through a series of events, felt like God just gave him life back again. And he wanted to, his life had been changed in college through Christian friends. And that's what he felt called to do. So for me, it was more of a call to my husband and being in ministry with him than me being called to a specific ministry. But I had appreciated how I had grown through Cru.
Yeah.
So when we got married in May of 2014 and had moved out of each of our apartments. And then I had 1 week of a school semester to finish. We were technically homeless. My grandma she just told me how sad she was for me. I'm just so sad you're married and homeless. It's like, Grandma, it's okay. We drove we had the honeymoon, my week of school where we lived with my friend.
Wow.
And then we drove to Florida and I joined staff with Cru. So we had like a 5-week commissioning time.
Yeah.
And then 5 months of raising support. And that was a kind of a crazy way to start marriage, but also a really exciting way.
I feel like that's such an adventure. Like, it might not have been exactly what you wanted, but the Lord, he probably taught you a lot through that. Just like trusting him and, waiting for what he has in store for you. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So what are you doing right now in Montana? Or maybe we're going to talk about Italy in a little bit, but before you went to Italy, what were you doing in Montana?
Yeah. So when I got married, my husband was on staff at the University of Montana with their undergrad ministry. So lots of evangelism, outreach, Bible studies, discipleship, retreats, mission trips, and I kind of jumped into all of that.
Love it.
So did that for 7 years. And then at the end of 7 years, our team had gotten so small that it wasn't enough of us to kind of keep the undergrad ministry going.
Okay.
So that closed in 2022, I think. And my husband and I still wanted to stay with Cru, but felt like, well, what are our options? And that led to kind of trying a few things for a year, but then thinking, what if God might be opening the door to something bigger? It felt really hard to lose the ministry we were doing, but God definitely used it to kind of put other options on our minds.
Did you have connection, like, to the college students? Did you feel like you could relate to them easily right away, or did it take a little while for you and Rob to kind of, like, get in the gist of talking with the college students and relating to them?
Yes. That is a funny and difficult question. I think on the one hand, I'm the oldest of 5 kids.
Yeah.
So when I started college ministry, my youngest sister started college. Pretty much around that time. So on the one hand, I felt like college students were relatable. They're like my youngest sister.
Yeah.
I can relate to her. On the other hand, I've always been more of a kids person. Little kids, elementary kids, middle school, and they gotta stop there. Not high school, not college. So I felt like the 7 years of working in college ministry, I grew a lot and I learned a lot, but I also felt like it wasn't quite my fit. And I think I was just talking with someone today, I wrestled a lot with, where I'm supposed to live a life that's a sacrifice for God, and trying to sort out the one way that I viewed that was like, if I'm supposed to sacrifice, it means I don't do anything I want to do, and I do the things I don't like. That equals sacrifice.
Yeah. And
I worked after a really hard health year that coincided with 2020 when everyone was having a hard year. I started meeting with a Christian life coach, and he started processing with me, what is this? Is it a biblical view of sacrifice that says don't do what you like and do what you don't like? Or is this kind of your arbitrary definition of sacrifice? So that was in 2021, 22 that I really started thinking through that and kind of dismantling my view of sacrificing for God, and trying to pay more attention to what are desires that God has given me, what are gifts that He has given me, making decisions more on where do I feel God is calling me, not just what is the most difficult of the options in front of me.
Yeah.
I didn't always make decisions based on that, but that was kind of this guilt of I gotta sacrifice. And I even talked to one friend during the time. My homework from this life coach was talk to someone about what you're wrestling through. So I was sharing with her, and she said, it sounds like you're trying to sacrifice in a sense of making yourself worthy before God. And Jesus was actually the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like that sacrifice was
so
Jesus. And it's so obvious, and it hadn't hit me until then.
Yeah.
So that happening in 2022 kind of pushed me to pay more attention to listening to God instead of just trying to meet needs or do hard things.
And sometimes when we're chasing after the gifts that God has given us and the things He's given us to serve Him, we will suffer. But we don't have to chase the suffering to do the things God called us. It's not the opposite. But I can see where you're coming from. Like that is something that I think some people do think. They're like, oh, I got to go in the mission field and I got to suffer for Christ. But like you said, He suffered for us. And I think that's such a beautiful truth to reflect on. Like, He did it all. He saved us. We don't have to do anything on our own accord. And I think that gives us a lot of freedom, too, to serve Him. So that's really cool. I love that. All right, let's talk about Italy. So when was it that you first went? Did you went for a visit first before you moved? Tell us about that process.
Yes. We visited. Okay, so I had the really hard year in 2020. My husband had kidney failure, was on dialysis, and needed a transplant in the midst of a pandemic. Then I had a year of my body actually processing the stress, where I actually had worse health the year after he was better, because I think I was finally able to pay attention enough to process stress. And then we had 2022, and that was when we kind of had, then our campus shut down for ministry. So that was the start of thinking, what if I consider what God has given me an interest in? What if I lean into that as following Him and see where there's needs, but where they coincide with passions, interests, values. And we were looking at a map of places where you could apply to go for a year with Crew. And join a local team. And it turned out it was during the Russia and Ukraine war. And so there were Crew staff from around the world gathering to pray. And I got on this prayer call, and I saw a name of a woman that I had gone to college with when I was a freshman. She was a junior. And I thought, oh, I guess she's still on staff with Crew. So I sent her a quick message, Amy, what are you doing? What are you up to? I saw you on this prayer call. And she got back to me and said, well, I'm still with Crew, and I lead the national ministry in Italy.
Wow.
And it started this crazy snowball, I guess, of I've never been to Europe. I'm actually interested in Europe. Like, I've been on mission trips where I cried when I found out I was going, because it just felt so difficult.
Uh-huh.
And Europe seemed interesting. The more I learned about Italy, it felt like it matched where my husband and I like really relational ministry, even if it doesn't feel fruitful or productive.
Yeah.
And Italy is highly relational. It's also not very fruitful as far as it takes many years before people kind of shift from a faith is about religion, traditions, rituals to a personal relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
But that felt exciting for us to lean into those connections. So, yeah, we applied to go overseas the end of 2022 and got accepted and went there for April of 23 for our very first visit to Europe.
How was that like flying in? Was it surreal? Like just
It was.
like, yeah.
Yeah. And we had tagged along. There were a group of students from Oregon who wanted to do a spring break trip to Slovakia, which we had also never been to. So we took this group of 5 to Slovakia, then had a weekend in Budapest, Hungary, and then sent them home. And my husband and I went to Italy. And it just felt like this is a place where I've already said yes to, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the people. I'm excited for the history and the place. We spent 10 days there, and I was sick for 7 of the 10 days.
Oh no.
So it was kind of this view of like God can work through suffering in any circumstances.
Yes.
I don't need to try to create it. But even with that, we just felt really excited at the opportunity.
And so then when you lived there for a year, what did like a normal day look like? What were you doing serving? And also the language, learning that and connecting with the people there.
Yes.
What was that like?
Yes. Posso parlare un po' di italiano.
Oh, okay.
Sì, I can speak a little Italian.
I love it. What did you say?
That's what I said. I can. Yes, I can. Posso parlare, speak, un po', a little, di italiano, of Italian.
Okay. Love it.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
We were focused on campus ministry again, reaching either Italian students or international students. Their college structure is very different. And there aren't necessarily clubs. There's no student union buildings. So really our way of connecting was going on campus 3 days a week, going to a coffee shop, which there's a lot of great coffee and pastries.
Yum.
And we would sit at a table and lean over to the students next to us and just try and start conversations.
Wow.
So that was hard for me. I am not an extrovert, but my husband is. So he's great at starting conversations.
Yes. So did you have a schedule every day where you were like working on things, or did you just kind of try to make relationships with the students?
Yeah. A big part was every week trying to meet new students. And then once we had gotten phone numbers and exchanged contact, trying to meet up, often we would ask if we could practice Italian and if they wanted to practice English with us. So that was helpful. Most of them spoke English. But we really connected more with international students. So that started being, we had a Bible study through our church over there that was mostly international students. And the other piece was we were part of the operation. I was part of the operations team, so helping some missions events happen. There's also an arts ministry there that does a big photo exhibit and outreach for International Women's Day. We got to help with that. We were, thankfully, Crew has you do language classes of whatever country you move to. So we had 10 hours a week of language class for 5 of the months, 5 of the 10 months we were there.
That's very helpful. I feel like a lot of people I've talked to have said learning language is so much easier if you're in the like culture where they're talking a lot.
Yes.
Because I did 2 years of Spanish, and just doing it online, I learned things, but then like when I went to the store and could hear people talking, it was so much easier to practice, and because you heard the people talking, trying to figure out what they're saying, talking to them, and then they'd be like, "That's not how you say it," and you're like, "Oh." So I think that you learning it there and then getting to interact is such a cool thing that you got to practice it. So then after the year, you came back to Montana. was that transition hard, like leaving the relationships you had built there, or were you really excited to go back home?
Yes, I think by the time we had moved to Italy in August, by March of the next year, I felt ready to come home. I missed the springtime is my favorite.
Me too.
So that was hard because we lived in the city of Florence. We lived on the 5th floor of an apartment. No, there were beautiful parks, but no grass, lawn.
Very different from Montana.
Yeah, yes. So it felt hard. March, April, May were hard, but I just kept telling myself this may be our only opportunity to live for a year overseas. We don't know what's ahead.
Yeah.
So keep enjoying it, keep pressing into the hard things. But coming back to Montana, the neat piece was we had kind of stopped any commitments before we left because we weren't sure if we would stay in Italy longer, if we would move to another country, move to another state when we came back. Everything was kind of open to where God would direct us. But we felt the desire to go back to Montana. We felt the desire to be in the U.S. while we have nieces and nephews who are young and growing up, wanting to be part of their lives. And we really love our local church in Montana and our neighborhood. And so that felt like a big call to be back there. But the neat part was as we moved back, we built in the routines that were more based on what we felt God putting on our hearts rather than what we just were already always doing.
Yeah. I feel like that's so important to just lean into what the Lord's leading you to, because I often just see in my own life, it's so easy to be like, this is what I want, and we're all human. We all feel that way. But if he's not leading you to that and you feel the peace and direction from him, but I have learned it's not always peaceful. Sometimes it's like the Lord's leading to it and you don't have peace about it, and that's okay too. But just feeling the leading of the Lord and then the blessings that come from that is so wonderful. And I think something I have to grow into is just being okay with, this is where he's leading me, and I'm just going to walk faithfully and see what he does. And every time I've done that, it's just amazing what he does. And I'm not saying that it's easy, because there's lots of hardships that come in following Christ. But it's always just an adventure. So part of you following Jesus is that he has had you write, like you've loved to write, and that's using your interest and honoring him, which I think is awesome. Tell us a little bit about writing and your book that you wrote, Her Battle Strength. Tell us about that process and just writing in general.
Yeah. I always loved reading since I was a little kid. My mom would go grocery shopping and I would bring a book and I'd hold on to the shopping cart with one hand and have my book open in the other hand. So I was sometimes oblivious to other things in the world, but I read a lot of books.
Yes.
And I was an English major as one of my majors in college.
Yeah.
English literature, did a lot of reading and writing, but I love adventure stories. And I love, whether they're fiction or real, but when they're real, there's something extra powerful about an adventure story, people facing battles. Those were a lot of the books and movies that I liked. And in 2019, I was helping with a women's backpacking trip through Crew. We were in the mountains around Tahoe, California. Yes. And I had just been wrestling leading up to that time. I had been wrestling with verses that God speaks about women having strength and purpose and calling, but also verses on how we relate to the men around us in our lives. So I shared some on this backpacking trip and then went home and kind of kept wrestling with those things. And I felt like there can be, and I started writing. So that was, the backpacking trip was maybe in July, and I started writing in August. But I felt like so many voices that I heard either pushed, women should be strong, we have strengths, go change the world, which have great pieces and application. Yeah. Or I heard voices of women should be serving and caring for the people around them, which is also great, but it can become people-pleasing, or it can cause us to not seek God for what he's asking us to do. So I wanted to kind of wrestle with those two things together. What are the verses and the stories of women in the Bible, stories of women today that really lean on God for strength, but also use their strengths in their relationships for good.
Yeah.
And specifically looking at the men in their lives, not just husbands, but coworkers, neighbors, friends, family. How do we wield our strengths, and how do we care for others?
I feel like often I'm a very competitive person. I was just talking about this at Bible study on Tuesday, actually. I'm a competitive person, and I'm always hearing, like, women should be quiet and submissive, and sometimes it's really hard for me. I just want to win, and sometimes it's like I get a little too loud. But that's also my personality that the Lord has given me, and I think there is a time to embrace those strengths that God has given us and use them for good, but also know when to be quiet and just listen. But yeah, so you started the book with the backpacking trip, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you add that in afterward, or did you add that in right when you started writing? You're like, okay, I'm going to start the book with this.
I wasn't sure. Yes, the book opens with this backpacking story. I wanted an adventure story.
Yeah.
I wanted the book to feel, even though it's nonfiction, I wanted it to be full of stories.
I love
So that kind of helped me kick off. Like, I want to set the stage for the whole book by being this quest that we're on as women that requires strength, but also God created us to be in relationship.
Yeah.
So how do we wrestle with that? And even you talking about women that bring a competitive edge or this boldness to things reminds me of, I think I looked at maybe 30 women in the Bible, different pieces of their story, and then women of today. But I think of the Queen of Sheba, who showed up with Solomon to challenge him.
Yeah.
And bring all these questions. And it says she spoke until there was no more breath left in her. Like, she was not leaving anything out. But God used that in Solomon's life. He used her in her country's life to bring back stories of the God of Israel to possibly Ethiopia. There's debate on where she came from. But God used people like that. Or Lydia in the New Testament, where it says she prevailed on Paul to come and stay with her.
Yeah.
And they came and stayed with her. So those are just neat. So many different personalities.
How boring it would be if we were all the same.
Yes.
Like, if you think about the church and all the pieces, how when we're all together, how well we can serve Christ. If we were all just, like, outgoing and bold or all quiet, like, it would be kind of boring. And also, I don't think the church would interact as well. Like, God has gifted us in so many ways to work together, serve Him, and honor Him with our lives. And so I love that. This is all amazing stuff. I love all the things you're doing for the Lord. It's really inspiring. What are some of your goals for the future? What are some things you want to do in your next years of ministry, and what are you looking forward to?
Not a lot of people know this, so this can be a bonus.
Okay.
I have 2 things on my bucket list, which has not ever been a priority to add to.
Yeah.
But I haven't done these 2 yet. One is to go canoe camping.
Okay.
And there are plenty of options in Montana, so just pick a place to start, reserve some campsites along the river, do that. The other is to ride a running camel.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll ever do that, but I would love to, because camels run with their right legs and their left legs, unlike some horses can run like that. But I grew up horseback riding. I would love to ride a running camel. So far, the people who have done camel tours that I've talked to said we don't run. So I don't know.
Maybe you just accidentally, it just gets scared and then it just runs and you're like, there we go.
But I think beyond those 2 fun bucket list things, my husband and I got to go back to Italy for a month this past March and help with some projects. And we would love to get to keep doing that. So we will see if that's an open door. But I love building on the language. I love going back to a place, even if it's different cities. It builds respect with the people of that country to know that you're invested long term in their people, their culture, their history, their food, their art. So we'd like to be able to keep doing that, at least going back to Europe. I don't know if I will write another book. I like writing maybe short articles. That would be fun.
Yeah.
I've gotten to speak a few times with the book, and I love that piece because I get to facilitate other people talking about topics. That has been fun. Yeah, we'll see.
Just following the Lord's lead.
Yes, I've the two pieces that I added back in when I moved to Montana, other than working, and I shifted to being an executive assistant within my ministry, which also was like taking this leap of faith of I struggle with meeting new people every day as a job.
Yeah.
So what if that was less of my full-time job? Like I can occasionally meet people at the grocery store or a park. But I shifted to doing more logistics and admin, communications, events, and I have loved that. So that's been a neat way to accelerate missions, but from behind the scenes, which has been a great fit for me.
I love that.
Aside from work, doing that left me with enough social energy that I could add other things.
Yes.
So I volunteer at a barn that does therapeutic riding lessons for kids and adults with disabilities. I do that 1 day a week, and I would love to keep doing that.
Yep.
And then teaching 4th and 5th grade Sunday school, which is high energy and wild, and I love it.
That's so fun. I also work at a barn once a week, and it's so fun. Especially when the kids come to ride. It's my favorite. Like, usually in the morning I'm cleaning stalls and things like that. But when the kids come to ride and they're so excited and just their joy on being on the horse, and some of them are so talented. Like, I'm so impressed every time I see them ride. It's so fun. I love that. I'd love to come visit and see the barn you work at, too. That's so cool. What is one of your favorite Bible verses? I know there's a lot of good verses. I struggle with that question. And what is some encouragement you could give to young women who are interested in serving the Lord with their life or missions? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think historically, one of my favorite verses has been in Philippians 4, when Paul is saying, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything with prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, present your requests before God, and the peace of God will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus.
That's amazing, because my favorite verses are Philippians 4:4-13. So all of those are in it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes, I am often anxious about things, and I need to remember. And sometimes I literally just stop and follow that progression. Okay, I'm supposed to save the thing that I'm asking for. I need to give thanks. I need to ask for God's peace and just go through the steps. But recently, when I moved over to Italy, I was still kind of wrestling with that. How do I sacrifice for God, but not try to replace the sacrifice that Christ already did? I was looking, they brought us up to a mountaintop in Hungary, and they just talked about how Jesus gave a lot of his messages on mountaintops, or he would go up on a mountaintop to pray. And what is the significance? Is it spiritual? Is it geographical? There could be multiple things. But they had us, once they were up at the top and looking over the city, to go somewhere and sit and spend time with God. And the verse that was coming to mind was where I think the version in Luke is the one that says, he who seeks to save his life will lose it, but he who loses his life for my sake will find it. And I just realized that I had always focused on the first part, like, I need to lose my life for Christ. I need to lose my life for Christ. And never the second part that says you will find your life when you're following Jesus. And of course it involves sacrifice and loss of some things, but the promise is that you will find life. And so the whole year in Italy, I just kept asking, like, God, where are you showing me life in this? Where am I experiencing life, and where you have me right now? And so that verse has stuck with me for the last 2 years of seeking God and paying attention more to what he's given me, what opportunities he's opened for me, where there are needs around me. But instead of just being driven by needs and asks and what's hard, being driven by God and looking for where is he showing me life that he wants me to step into.
I love that.
Yeah. trying to think back to myself in my 20s. I just turned 40 this January, which feels exciting.
Yes.
A new decade to be in. I think building the practice of listening to God, and whether that's through reading books. I don't think there's a simple answer. And I also think there's not a simple, God called me to this. I think it's complex. It's partly mysterious. It's partly spiritual. And it's sometimes very tangible.
Yeah.
How we listen to God and how he calls us. But I think that is a skill that we need for our whole lives. And that changes. I remember thinking, I wish I could just choose to follow God in this situation, and that was my surrender to him. And I never need to struggle with it again. I never need to surrender anything else because I surrendered this time, and you told me to go this way. I will never have any other crossroad. I now have this one path of surrender. But yeah, I just am reminded so many times I continually need to make decisions. And so learning to listen to God. I think there's been a lot of being regularly at church. God puts things on my mind. Reading my Bible, God puts things on my mind. Meeting with a disciple or mentor, the spiritual coach that I met with, that was huge in helping me listen to God. Being around people that ask you questions more than tell you what to do. I think that I am now trying to do that more with the younger people around me.
Yeah.
Asking questions, listening, helping them see where God might be showing patterns of work at their life or opening doors. That just takes a lot of hearing, asking, and listening.
Yeah. About the surrender, I feel that over and over in my life. I often find myself worrying about like next steps, the future, and surrendering it into the Lord's hands. I've done that. And then the next minute I find myself worrying about it again. And I'm like, and God's like, surrender it in my hands. I'm like, wait, but I already surrendered this. What do you mean? And he's like, no, you need to do it again. And it's a constant battle to be like, it's in your hands. It's not in my control. It's in your control. But the peace that comes like after just knowing like, I don't have to do anything. You have my future in your hands is honestly amazing. And I even had like, after my last surrender to the Lord of being like, Lord, you have my future, I had one of the 3 best days of my life. Like those 3 next days, I was just so focused on my nannying, like my babysitting. I was so focused on the kids. I was so focused at home with my family. I just felt like focused on the Lord too. And then after those 3 days, I went back to being like, Marie again. I was like, all right, surrender again. Let's do this again, God. And I think the battle, like we're promised in the Bible, it's not going to be easy, like we said. And so it's okay to keep surrendering, but I have to remind myself, like you said, it's not a one-time surrender, but we wish it could be. I find myself, surrendering multiple times, and that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on today, Deanne. I really enjoyed our conversation and getting to hear your stories, and I hope it blessed the people who listened. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ava.